Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to the channel. Wow, do I have a good one for you today? I certainly hope so. I put a lot of effort into this. So as an intro, before we get into it, I just wanted to say, isn't it amazing how The Simpsons have an uncanny ability to predict the future? It's insane how, like, you see so many events that they predict. So I wanted to show you this real quick.
The Soviet Union will be pleased to offer amnesty to your wayward vassal.
The Soviet Union? I thought you guys broke up.
Yes, that's what we wanted you to think.
Must crush capitalism.
Yeah, that's been circulating around online quite a bit. So with that, let's get into the topic today. So this is going to be an update, again, my third one on the Russia-Ukraine situation. So as tough as it is, we must not react emotionally to the headlines when investing and in general, especially as far as the Ukraine conflict and the impact on the markets, which is what we're going to discuss today. Remember, investing is mostly a long-term game with no more than 15 to 20% that should be allocated to risky and speculative positions. And that may be somewhat high. It may be lower for you, especially like if you're older. Like I say for me, maybe 15 to 20% is maybe high, but that's just a general guideline. It's important, however, to fully understand the background and the ramifications of the situation. And while this is a finance channel, history and current events will be tied in based on importance. And I find this situation very important, which is why I've done 3 different videos on it. It has huge impact all around. And it's not meant to scare you. It's just meant to lay out the facts. And at the bottom here, I stand with Ukraine. Oh, and another little surprise I had here. So I was going to say, by the way, isn't 2022 going great? In case you forgot, guess what movie was set in 2022? Soylent Green. Some of you who are old enough probably know about that, but that's kind of crazy. It's set in 2022. So with that, back to this. So in general, what exactly is going on? So it seems like Putin wants to rebuild the Soviet Union / USSR. And let's put that in perspective. And that seems like kind of what that Simpsons clip might have hinted at. It may have, again, predicted the future. So Russia now versus the former USSR, to use a Star Wars reference. And I know a lot of my audience are Star Wars fans, so you guys like Star Wars references. So I thought I would make one. So Russia now is like the first order of the new trilogy versus the original Galactic Empire of the original trilogy. The former wants to be the latter. So the former, being Russia, wants to become the USSR again, akin to the First Order wanting to become the Galactic Empire. For that to happen, so Putin's already invaded Ukraine and he's invaded parts of Georgia. Those are 2 of the former Soviet satellite countries. So for him to reestablish the USSR, he would have to annex Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Estonia, the rest of Georgia. If you recall, if you study history, he annexed South Ossetia and Abkhazia in 2008. So he'd have to annex the rest of that country. Sometimes when people see that, they think it's the state, but it's not. It's actually a country that was a former Soviet satellite. Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Latvia, Lithuania, Moldova, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Ukraine, and Uzbekistan. And when you're planning your next investment, you can memorize all of those. Just kidding. So there's also concern that Putin could continue moving westward if he succeeds in conquering Ukraine and he were to move into Poland. Again, if you're a student of history, you know, invading Poland is what actually started World War II. So if he were to move into Poland and other NATO countries, it would have to trigger a US response because the US is the biggest part of NATO. And that could very well trigger World War III, which would be a potential nuclear exchange, which is very scary. And we sincerely hope that doesn't happen. So to review this on a map, let's look at an interactive map that I pulled up. I want to go over here. So I'll go back to my main desktop here. So this is an interactive map of Europe over here. And actually I made this out to look like the former Soviet Union, but we'll start from scratch here. So this is Russia. If Russia wants to take over all its former satellite countries, which seems like Putin may be bent on doing, so he would take over the rest of Ukraine, and then Belarus, and then Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania over here. These countries to the south, which also used to be former Soviet satellites. This country here, and this is Kazakhstan, I believe. I think Borat's from there. Borat won't let that happen, right? But anyway, you see the ramifications of how huge the Soviet Union used to be. And if he were to keep moving, if he was this successful and he decided, all right, let's go into Poland, then you could have World War III. You could have all these NATO countries pulled in. So you get an idea of the ramifications. I just thought that would help to visualize that on the map. So now back to this. So again, going back to my Star Wars reference, the map at the bottom right here, this is Russia currently with all the former Soviet satellites highlighted in orange. So they're like the first order, and they want to become like the galactic empire. Putin wants his empire back. They want to be back to their former glory, back to the former Soviet Union. And this is the map in the top right is the Soviet Union as of 1990 before it collapsed. So on this screen, some random things that I've been researching and found on the internet. This one intrigued me here on the top left. I said, what happened to this guy? It's Putin holding a puppy. It's funny, like you wouldn't expect to see that. The top right here, uh-oh, what's this doing here? Can't have this. Let me take that out. I don't want to get canceled. So there we go. So that's gone. Jumping around here again. And then in the middle here, this is a 40-mile wide Russian convoy, which was marching into Kiev. And they've actually been stalled because the Ukrainian people are actually blowing up bridges and things like that to stall the Russian army from advancing. So Putin has actually moved much slower than he anticipated because the Ukrainian people's resolve has been much stronger than originally anticipated. So the map here to the bottom right, these are areas controlled by Russia as of February 28th. And it's more than this now, but it seems like one of the first targets of Putin was the Chernobyl plant, the infamous Chernobyl plant. So they took that over. He's taken over some other nuclear power plants, and he's taken over some major cities. But the two biggest cities, Kharkiv and Kiev, the capital, he hasn't taken that over yet. And then these provinces here, Donetsk and Luhansk, these are supposed to be like pro-Russian rebels. And then the countries in blue are NATO members, Poland, Lithuania, Romania. And then, so some people have wondered about this, so I included this here. Potential US involvement. I took a snippet from the State of the Union address last week, and it went something like this. Our forces are not engaged and will not engage in the conflict with Russian forces in Ukraine. And highlighted here in red, our forces are not going to Europe to fight in Ukraine, but to defend our NATO allies in the event that Putin decides to keep moving west. So again, if he continues to move west, then it would pull the US into the conflict, and we could have a much bigger conflict in which US troops would then be involved. So again, we hope that doesn't happen. Now, how is all this impacting our lives and the market and economy in general? The biggest way we see it is in terms of gas prices. And as we saw today, the national average is very close, if not already surpassing the 2008 highs. And this is because of crude oil. So crude oil prices on the morning of March 7th hit $130 a barrel. They're being driven astronomically high and potentially soon to hit all-time highs if they haven't already. Now, I'm going to do another video, which is coming soon, where I actually discuss the impact of crude oil on gas prices, and I'm actually going to break it down. I've not really seen a lot of content breaking down gas prices, and a lot of people really get frustrated and they don't understand it as a whole. I think the general consensus is that the oil companies are ripping us off. While the oil companies do seem to be more profitable during prices of like peak crude oil, The costs of crude are still going up, so it's not maybe what you think. But I do want to break that down because crude oil does account for 70% of the price you pay at the pump. And the other 30%, just to give you a preview here, the other 30% is gas tax, which goes up every year, and other things like refining and marketing costs. Actually, the politicians tend to raise gas taxes. Every time gas drops, they see a window of opportunity to raise the gas tax more. That's why if you've noticed, if you paid attention, like when gas prices went up in 2008, crude oil was like $155 a barrel. But when they went up to almost $4 a gallon again in 2011, crude oil only went up to like 115. So you may wonder, well, if crude was 155 and it took that much for gas to get to $4 a gallon, then why, when crude only hit $115 a barrel 3 years later, why did gas also almost hit $4 a gallon? It's not inflation, to give you a hint. It's because of gas tax. And I'm going to get into all that in my next video. But the true price of gas in real terms, you see to the top right, which is for unleaded, an arm, for unleaded plus, a leg, and for premium gas, both an arm and a leg. So this very likely, this whole Russia-Ukraine situation very likely means gas prices will surpass their 2008 highs, which I was hoping this never happened again. I mean, it sucks anytime gas goes up above like 350. And I was just, really hoping that it wouldn't happen again, but we're here. Many areas of the US have already surpassed the 2008 highs, and it's going up quite a bit today. Now, some oil companies are doing well, actually. If you look up the returns of Marathon Oil, ExxonMobil, and Chevron, they've hit all-time highs. And if you look at Chevron and ExxonMobil specifically, going back to like November and December of 2021, they've gone way up from where they were. And they actually would have been great investments going back to November and December of 2021. So with all of this, really the best plays here are index investing and buying and holding long-term stable companies. It's really your best plays here. Even without this recent situation, just so far in 2022, this market's been wildly unpredictable and very difficult to make sense out of. And a good example, conventional wisdom would have suggested when you saw the futures on the morning after the Russia invasion of Ukraine started on February 25th, February 24th, the futures were way down. And I did a video on that too. And then miraculously, the market went from the futures being down almost 800 points in the Dow to the markets, to all three major indexes closing in the green, which was incredible. And it just made no sense at all. It's like, wow, maybe war is good for investing, which I'll get into in the next slide. But Friday, February 25th, saw great earnings reports come out for several companies. Now, due to the situation, I held off on making many moves at all. But two companies I happen to be following that day, Mercado Libre and Car Gurus, they had great earnings. And you may recall, if you really pay attention to all of these stocks and ticker symbols, Mercado Libre is like the South American / Brazilian version of Amazon. And that's been a stock that's had rapid growth since like 2018. A lot of people are looking for the next Amazon to get into, and that's definitely Mercado Libre, ticker symbol MELI, has definitely been one of the next Amazons. And Car Gurus, ticker symbol CARG, had great earnings that day. They were up 22% and 56% in a single day. So the call options for that day would have done phenomenally. But soon after, both stocks fell back within only the following week. They fell way down. But like I said, a short-term call option would have worked very nice that day for either one. And then this meme I have in the bottom right here, we hope this doesn't happen, but if Putin was as successful as he wanted to be, like this meme jokes that he would like take over all of Europe. Hopefully that doesn't happen. So where are we left with all of this at this point? The long-term outcome and ramifications. This is an interesting nugget here that I've followed for some time. So studies show the majority of the US population is not nearly fit or ready to fight a major war if a draft had to be reinstated. However, like prior generations, we are known to rise to the occasion when needed. Luckily, it may not come to that. Putin may actually be on the way out. Russia has been sanctioned heavily. Russian vodka is being pulled from US shelves. The ruble is collapsing. And the Russian economy very likely will soon collapse. Now, even if Putin does conquer Ukraine, he will more than likely not be able to hold it, again, because of the unprecedented resolve of the Ukrainian people, and also the backing by NATO and by the West, including us, because we are arming Ukraine. That's how they're able to, it's helping them to sustain. But a lot of people are fleeing to Poland and other countries. So, but the resolve of the Ukrainian people is tremendous and it's inspiring. Also, when in terms of Putin, he's turned the rest of the world against him. So the days of his regime are very likely numbered. Now, historically, investments do quite well during prolonged periods of war and conflict. And you'll see that in the chart in the middle, which I'll get into in just a second here, but I want to go over the two memes to the left here. So the ruble is actually worth less than 1 cent after the biggest currency crash in Russian history at some point. And then here's Putin. He's saying, I really like 50 cent, or as we call him in Russia, 4 million ruble, or 8 million. So that's because the ruble has collapsed so much. And that's my best attempt at a Russian accent. Maybe it was good, maybe not. But anyway, so the performance of stocks during wartime, and this goes back all the way to World War II. So at the outbreak of World War II in 1939, the few years ensuing after that, the market was actually down, as you can see here by the blue line at the bottom of this chart. But then it went into the green in the next several years, all the way until the rest of the war, all the way up to the end. So it was up 108%. And then this chart has the Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961, which was actually not a war, but it was just a failed invasion of Cuba to try to free it from Castro. It was also up 108% during that. And then the next big one, or the next biggest one, it's got them in order. So the Iraq War of 2003, the market went up 117% after that. The Vietnam War, which interestingly has started in 1955, a lot of people wouldn't agree that it started then. It's got the market up 184% during that war. And then the Korean War in 1950, it has the market up at 372% during that time. And then the biggest jump in the market was the Persian Gulf War of 1990, which was the first Iraq War, up 461%. And I know all of you all can read. I just wanted to go ahead and read it to you anyway, because I like talking. And then to the right over here, this is kind of neat. It's all these different countries that have the Ukrainian flag. And then you see the evening sunset here, and it's like the pattern of the Ukrainian flag. So it's like God is on their side too. So I thought that was kind of cool. And again, I stand with Ukraine, put that there at the bottom. So with all of that being said, if you enjoyed that, hope you found that valuable. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And I hope you all have a great rest of your evening, and stay positive, stay encouraged. We'll get through this. And again, hope that was valuable. Take care.